Have you ever flipped over a food label, seen the words vegetable oil, and wondered what that even means? Because it's definitely not oil squeezed from actual vegetables. Today we're digging into the real story behind canola and common seed oils, why some people avoid them, why some experts say they're fine, and how to make smarter choices without stressing over every single bite. I'm excited for this one because I think the truth is way more interesting than the internet arguments. So let's get started without wasting more time. When a bottle says vegetable oil, what you're usually getting is a blend of industrially processed seed oils. Things like canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, or rice bran oil. These oils don't come from cold pressing like extra virgin olive oil. They're made by heating the seeds, grinding them, washing them with a solvent like hexane to pull the oil out, bleaching, and deodorizing the final product. I know that sounds intense, but that's the standard industrial process. In my opinion, understanding how these oils are made helps you make sense of why people have concerns about them. The first big concern people talk about is the omega-6 content, especially linoleic acid. Omega-6 is not bad on its own. Your body needs it. The real issue is that a lot of people consume a huge amount of omega-6 and barely any omega-3. That imbalance might play a role in inflammation over time, especially if your diet is already full of ultra-processed foods. I've seen a lot of people blame seed oils for everything, when a lot of the problems come from the overall diet pattern. It's rarely just one ingredient. Another concern is oxidation. When oils high in polyunsaturated fats are heated too much, especially in restaurant fryers where the oil gets reused all day long, the fats can oxidize and form compounds called aldehydes. These aren't great for your body when consumed in large amounts. At home, you're usually cooking oil for minutes, not hours, so it's less extreme. But constant high heat or reusing oil too many times can break it down. There's also the question of trans fats. During the refining process, tiny amounts of trans fats can form naturally. Nothing like the old partially hydrogenated oils, but still present in small levels. Then there's polymerization, which is a complicated word for what happens when oil breaks down and gets sticky or gummy. If you've ever had a pan with brown hardened residue that doesn't scrub off easily, that's the type of breakdown people talk about. And of course, many people don't love the idea of hexane solvent extraction. Even though the solvent evaporates during processing, the whole industrial method turns people off. Personally, I understand why some people prefer oils that don't require this. Reused fryer oil is another big topic. A restaurant might keep the same batch of oil for hours or even days. As it breaks down, it becomes more oxidized. You can't see it, and you usually wouldn't taste it unless the oil is really old, so it's a valid concern if you're eating fried foods often. Now here's the other side of the conversation. Mainstream nutrition research shows that polyunsaturated fats, including canola and soybean oil, can help lower LDL cholesterol when used instead of saturated fats. That's the reason many nutrition organizations consider them heart-friendly. But lower LDL is only one part of heart health. Diet quality, weight management, exercise, blood sugar control, and inflammation all matter too. And this is where the nuance comes in. The research supporting omega-6 being harmful is mixed. Some studies show no issue at all, especially when people get enough omega-3. Other studies suggest high omega-6 diets might contribute to inflammation only when combined with low nutrient, low protein eating patterns. So it's not that seed oils are instant trouble, and it's not that they're perfect. In my opinion, there's something to be mindful of, not terrified of. Now let's shift into what this means in your kitchen, because at the end of the day, cooking is where most people get confused. Different oils behave differently at high temperatures. Extra virgin olive oil is great for medium to medium-high cooking. It has antioxidants that actually protect it from breaking down, even though people think you can't heat it. That's a myth. Avocado oil is fantastic for high heat, because it's mostly monounsaturated and very stable. High oleic sunflower or safflower oils are completely different from regular sunflower or safflower oils. The high oleic versions have way fewer polyunsaturated fats and are much more stable. Ghee, butter, tallow, and coconut oil are all strong high heat options because they're naturally more saturated. They don't oxidize as easily. In my experience, these are great for sautéing or searing. Coconut oil works great in certain recipes, though I usually recommend it for baking or specific dishes since it has a unique flavor. A lot of people choose oils based solely on the smoke point, but the smoke point can be misleading. The real question is how stable the oil is at the temperature you're cooking at. Olive oil, for example, may smoke earlier than some oils, but it doesn't oxidize nearly as fast because of its antioxidants. That makes it protective at normal cooking temperatures. Here's an easy guide I personally use. Olive oil for sautéing, roasting, or dressing. Avocado oil for high heat. Ghee or tallow is used when you want a rich flavor or very hot cooking. Coconut oil for baking or certain cultural dishes. High oleic oils for neutral flavor and strong stability. Now, if you're trying to cut back on omega-6, there's an easy rule you can follow. Use olive oil or avocado oil for most of your cooking, and let your omega-6 intake come mainly from whole foods like nuts and seeds instead of oils found in packaged snacks or fried foods. If you read labels, you can roughly estimate omega-6 by looking at total fat and subtracting saturated and monounsaturated fat. The rest is usually omega-6. Restaurant meals can easily contain 10 to 20 grams just from the oil used. Let's talk about real life, because not everyone has a huge budget or tons of time. If your family cooks with canola or soybean oil because it's cheap and familiar, you don't have to overhaul everything overnight. You can start with one upgrade. When you eat out, choose dishes that are grilled, baked, steamed, or air-fried. Ask for dressing on the side. Ask if they have olive oil or butter. These tiny adjustments add up fast, and they're realistic for families. There are also a few common traps that surprise people. Mayo almost always contains soybean oil unless it explicitly says avocado or olive oil. Chips and crackers almost always use sunflower, safflower, or soybean oil. Coffee creamers sometimes contain seed oils, even though no one expects them to. Shelf-stable sauces often rely on cheap oils. Making small homemade alternatives or finding brands that use avocado or olive oil can make a big difference without changing your entire lifestyle. I also want to clear up a few myths so you walk away with confidence. Smoke point does not equal health. Olive oil can absolutely be heated. Seed oils do not instantly cause inflammation the moment you eat them. And coconut oil is not a magic fix for every problem. In my opinion, the smartest, calmest approach is to simply use more stable oils at home, reduce ultra-processed foods, and be aware of how often you're eating foods fried in reused restaurant oil. Small steps have a big impact when you stick with them. If you are planning to use olive oil, watch this video next, where I have shared how to use it in the best way possible without ruining it.